always fighting.
They had some nights that were just genius and played all their songs brilliantly, and some nights Chris and Steve just got into fist fights on stage and never finished the set. I remember at Waves, they got in this fist fight in the dressing room and trashed the whole place and got kicked out, and it could never come back forever.
Steve just lost it, like walked off the stage, like picked up a pinball machine, slammed it down, broke the glass on it, you know, and then like left the club.
I mean, the Oz thing was the greatest. They had some tremendous explosion before they went on stage. And when they went on stage, I think they would like to kill each other. There were like, just like sparks flying through the air. You know, there's that instrumental that's on the Oz album. It was so hot.
These guys would always play two guitars and they'd never be in tune. And they'd sit there bicker on stage. And people thought it was like a gimmick, like, you know, it was an act or something, but it wasn't.
You're out of tune. No, you're out of tune. No, you're out of tune. Bam.
We're exactly in tune tonight.
I read something that Husker Du came back to Minneapolis and said they had seen us at a show, and their report was there's this skinhead band called Strike Under, and when the brothers go out of tune, they punch each other. And you know, that wasn't exactly the way it was, but you know.
I don't think we ever duked it out. I think we certainly had our arguments. I don't think any punches were ever thrown.
I think there were punches thrown. There was a show they did down at, I think it was the UIC, University of Illinois, Chicago. I think there were punches at that show. It was like maybe the second to last show they did.
Again, that might have been part of our reputation that got blown up a little bit more than it was. I mean, maybe we shouted at each other a couple of times on stage and, you know, us accentuating the negative.
They can't downplay it. I was there, I saw that stuff. They hated each other, but they were brothers. You know.
That friction must have caused him to really write some great material. It's just, unfortunately, that also caused them to, you know, split ways.
George and Terry approached the Effigies and said, hey, let's make a record. So we brought them out to Sound Impressions to make Haunted Town.
You know, I think the Effigies sort of, in a way, they kind of pioneered a new sort of punk, you know, like a metal punk that maybe hadn't existed really quite like that, you know.
It was just a cut above everybody else's stuff at that point in time, with better lyrics, better musicianship, and the songs were heavy, as heavy could get for back then.
It was definitely heavy.
They say that the big guitar sound of Chicago. Well, it was that record, not some Steve Albini record. Steve.
Haunted Town, Queer the Machine, and Body Bag are three of probably the greatest standout pieces of vinyl to come out of Chicago. I mean, they made you want to do something.
We had these reviews, these guys would say, this album is misguided patriotism, because these knuckleheads saw the flag on the front and said, you know, this is the American flag. It's not, it's Chicago. This is what we are, you know. Suburbanite or not, we understand Chicago. We know what it's about, you know. And that was Haunted Town.
Live in a haunted town, a haunted town.
I was doing shows for WXRT at that time and working out at the studio in Des Plaines, and I got a phone call one day from somebody, and they said, somebody from the Donahue Show's on the phone. I said, oh, I'll take it. Well, we're gonna do an episode on the Donahue Show about punk. I'm like, cool. She goes, we need some punks on the show. Well, they have to look weird. They have to be weird and freaky. I'm like, well, if you want a freak show, I'm not sure if these people are gonna be into it. You know, well, they have to look weird. And obviously she was just doing the classic setup, you know, where you put the weird, freaky people on, and then they get hammered by all the suburban moms in the audience.
I mean, stand up just a second. I'm sorry.
My children, but I don't want one that's got purple hair standing up, or I've got a daughter that might be on drugs. I'd rather see her on drugs than that. I'd rather see her.
The anti-punk lady was saying these kids are into drugs, they're into self-mutilation, they're into violence, they slam dance and get cut up.
Apparently you put this on your...
On the wrist.
On the wrist.
Yeah.
And then as you dance, you
slam.
It's slam dancing. And the idea is to what? To injure the other person, or?
Yeah. No. All right.
All right.
You just go out and have fun. Like if somebody falls on the floor, you know, they could get trampled or something, but everybody will always help you up, you know. Nobody will let you get down there and get your head smashed. Nobody's out to beat anybody's head in.
Okay, but I don't understand the hurt part of it.
It's like football.
I've seen a lot more people hurt in a high school or college football game than any night or any month of anybody dancing anywhere.
And the Chicago punks were trying to get the point across that the way it was in California with a bunch of disaffected, snotty, rich suburban kids, and in Chicago it was mostly just street level, you know, hard-working folks who were punks. It wasn't that. They truly tried to make that distinction on the show, which completely went over the heads of everybody in the audience.
How do you feel about the future, your future?
That's pretty ambiguous.
Yeah. You don't care?
Not really.
Uh-huh. He's a what? Why is he a moron?
He's just a silly guy. I mean, he's got a dumb haircut. I mean, see, the thing about it is, if you could be a punk rocker or you can be a silly fool, you know, you can make yourself, you know, like they're talking about cutting yourself up or taking a lot of drugs or anything like that. And you can do that kind of stuff, and you can have a stupid purple haircut or anything like that, or you can listen to music that says something about evil stuff, you know. Yeah. And you can still have class. You can still be a regular person and listen to that kind of music. You don't have to be that silly.
I agree. Why shouldn't you then encourage me to get the kids back together again with their parents?
You're not trying to get them back together with their parents. You're trying to get them to be just like their parents.
How do you know that?
No.
Yes.
I wonder if these people would fight for our country if a war broke out.
No! How do you feel about that?
I think that they stink then.
People thought that we wanted to bring down the world, destroy the world. We were like the most dangerous thing. And now that I'm old, I wish that we would have allowed them to believe that. I wish we would have scared the hell out of them.
So in DeKalb, I had formed this band called Direct Drive with Joe Scuderi, who ended up in AOF, and two other guys. We're doing everything from Blondie to Bruce Springsteen covers. You know, and there's a couple of songs that we're throwing in that we've written ourselves, but they sound very Clash derivative. And so when Direct Drive comes to Chicago and we start playing shows, I think we're a very derivative band. We don't have a very unique sound. We're not a very good band.
Kind of a cross between the Clash and the Who or something. It was very rockish.
Well, because of Vic, it was a cross between Bruce Springsteen and something.
I remember thinking that they seemed kind of like punk rock Bruce Springsteen.
Parents lived in the Washington, D.C. area, and so at Christmas time I'd fly home and see my folks, and my sister got involved in the D.C. punk scene. And so she was saying, well, come down and see the Bad Brains. The Bad Brains were like the same feeling that I had at the Clash show. I mean, just being completely floored. I went back to Chicago and I said to the guys, we're doing this wrong. We're trying to copy bands. Let's find something that nobody else in Chicago is doing and let's make it our own. Now, most of the bands in Chicago at that time were playing pretty mid-tempo punk rock, you know. It's a 4/4, boom, and we just said, let's play fast. Let's be if nothing else, we can be the fastest band in this city. And probably within 3 months we were, without a doubt. This notion of a hardcore, of music that was so unmusical you could barely tolerate it, hadn't yet come into being. What I saw in DC were the Bad Brains, Faith, Minor Threat, bands that were playing music that you couldn't dance to. It's like bebop to jazz, right? You couldn't dance to it anymore. It was almost conceptual art. And then we did What We Want Is Free, early '82, out in Schaumburg. And then we put that out ourselves. So by that point, we had really crystallized a pretty aggressive sound.
You know, they were doing stuff that other bands weren't doing, like some kind of strange time signatures. Vic would sometimes play with an acoustic guitar, and that was like, oh my God, what the hell's he doing up there with an acoustic guitar, you know? There were people in the AOF camp that hated the Effigies, and there were people that were in the Effigies camp that hated AOF.
It's like our crowds never really overlapped, you know? I mean, in my mind at least, Articles of Faith fans really weren't Effigies fans.
Those AOF guys were much more like me, like politically, but I still always thought that the Effigies were the greatest.
Haunted Town still stands up along any fucking record. But they were just fucking crabby and shit. And they would go out of town, they just talk shit about everybody in Chicago in interviews. So everybody's like, fuck you.
Because we were touring the country and they were touring the country too. We go into these other towns, Boston or New York or something, and we'd see a local fanzine, we'd see them just ragging on us, just bad rapping us. I'll tell you the truth, I was really hurt at first. I mean, I liked the Effigies, I wanted to be part of their world, but they didn't want me part of their world, whatever, you know, whatever.
I like Vic Bondi. Vic Bondi's a